In Afghanistan, thousands of US and NATO forces have entered the fourth day of a major offensive in southern Helmand province. The assault, which is billed as an attempt to remove the Taliban from the city of Marjah, is one of the largest military offensives of the 8-year war. At least 19 civilians have been killed so far, including 6 children who died when a missile struck their house on the outskirts of the city. Meanwhile, the Italian NGO Emergency says dozens of seriously injured civilians are being prevented from reaching hospitals in the provincial capital Lashkar Gah due to military blockades. Emergency said 6 victims died because their evacuation was hindered and denounced what it called severe war crimes by Allied forces. While US and NATO troops were reportedly targeted with heavy gunfire, sniper fire, and improvised explosive devices today, the military claims most of Marjah is under their control. Many members of the Taliban are believed to have fled into Pakistan after the U.S. warned the attack on Marjah was imminent. Many residents have also fled to nearby towns. A spokesman for the governor of Helmand said nearly 1,000 displaced families had arrived in Lashkar Gah. We go now to Afghanistan to speak with Wall Street Journal reporter Anand Gopal. He joins us on the line from Kabul. Anand, welcome to Democracy Now! Tell us what's happening. What do you understand has happened in Marjah?
Well, U.S. forces are pushing very slowly closer to the town center of Marjah. Taking the town center would be essentially the symbolic victory of the offensive, because that's where most of the population lives. And so they've been moving very slowly and encountering increasing resistance as they get to the center. But they have taken most of the areas in which they've gone through.
And what about this charge of the Italian medical aid group Emergency, who said that residents who were trying to leave were stopped by blockades by U.S. NATO forces, and some of those that died as a result of not being able to get out?
Yeah, we think that these people that the NGO is referring to are one of the 12 people that were killed in a rocket attack a couple of days ago. This is an errant rocket that hit a house, killing everybody inside, including a number of children. And many locals in the area, both in Marjah and in other parts of the province, have complained that the military forces haven't let them to move around. The military says that's because insurgents are leaving the area and fleeing to Pakistan, so they've put almost a complete halt on a lot of the movement there.
And what is the response around Afghanistan, in places like where you are right now in Kabul, to this assault on Marjah?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Marjah isn't a particularly strategic place, or it isn't a place that holds any really strategic value. It's a very tiny town in Helmand province. The official estimate is around 80,000, but I think a lot of Afghans and I also think that's a huge overestimate. And so it's more seen as a show of force by the coalition forces, something they can for their home audiences of how they've gone into a village and retaken it from the Taliban. But beyond that, nothing will really change on the ground, regardless of what happens in Marjah. And that's sort of what's informing the reaction around the country, where people are seeing this more as business as usual and not a real turning point in the war.
Anand Gopal, the latest news on the Taliban leader who the U.S. and NATO forces say has been captured, though the Taliban are refusing to admit this. The top military commander, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, seized in Karachi, Pakistan, and his significance.
Mullah Baradar is the day-to-day leader of the Taliban. Mullah Omar, who's the supreme leader, is in hiding and has very little contact with the rest of the movement. So Mullah Baradar is the person who's actually in charge of the day-to-day activities of the movement. So if it's true that he actually has been captured, that it's pretty significant in development. He would be the highest-ranking Taliban member ever captured by U.S. or Pakistani forces. And he's somebody who had a lot of influence over the movement, but he's also somebody who is seen by some circles as one of the more moderate elements of the Taliban. He is behind a Taliban rulebook, for example, that had come out a couple of years ago, which asked Taliban fighters to try to limit civilian casualties, for example. So it's an interesting question whether his capture could actually help coalition forces' efforts, or in fact do the opposite and actually pave the way for an even more extreme leader to come and take his place.
And the latest news that we're getting of the rocket attack on the house that General McChrystal said, well, he had made a mistake, the military had made a mistake and hit the wrong house, that killed, it's believed, half a dozen children and other civilians. The latest news we have here is that General McChrystal has said that he's apologized to Hamid Karzai, and they have said that they will stop the rocket strikes. What do you understand about the killings and this latest edict from above, the stopping of the rockets?
The rocket strikes, in this case, from a particular missile system that the U.S. forces have there in the region. So they're halting strikes from that missile system. And civilian casualties, of course, is a very sensitive issue. And so General McChrystal and the rest of the leadership, military leadership here were very sensitive to any sort of sense from Afghans that civilians are being killed in the operation. And so they're very quick to apologize in this case. And President Karzai actually very quickly put out a statement denouncing the attack. But the difficult thing in understanding what's happening there is that we know at least 12 people were killed, but it's very difficult for reporters to get to Marjah. Almost all the reporters who are there are there as embedded reporters, so they're only seeing one side of the story. And we won't know for some time yet if these are the only cases or if there are many more.
Anand Gopal, I want to thank you for being with us. Anand Gopal is Wall Street Journal reporter based in Afghanistan, speaking to us from Kabul.